Welcome back to the Game Dungeon. This is the third time I filmed this video, and third time's the charm. It's also about a year since I started making Game Dungeon videos on YouTube. I'm not sharing anything about my collection today, but I am going to talk about a very interesting article I read by Mr. Zachary Small from the New York Times, titled "Video Games Can't Afford to Look This Good." And it has a very interesting argument on whether or not the economics of making these AAA video game titles is can be supported in the future. Can it be sustained? It also makes a bunch of interesting discussion points about the difference between the youth and what they value in video games versus what the old fogies value in video games. Vocal old fogies. Now, preface, I agree with the end kind of point that this article is trying to make, that perhaps it's not a good idea to spend millions and billions of dollars making these games on a risk, and then when they don't meet ridiculous sales expectations, firing loads of people after all the work and crunch and multiple hours they put in to make the game, shuttering entire studios that you purchased on good faith that it would be something to support that company in the future. That is something I wholeheartedly agree with. That's not cool, and I don't think that thing. I think that should change. There are a few points, however, in the article that I don't agree with. Points about the. Well, let's start from here. Mr. Small comments on high fidelity graphics are only moving a quote vocal class of gamer in their 40s and 50s. Now, there's 2 points about that I have issue with. I disagree with. First off, the terminology itself I think is misleading and not the proper term. What they're trying to say with high fidelity graphics is realistic graphics. Graphics that are, the point of it is to look either very real, close to reality, or I suppose using tens of thousands of times more polygon counts to create effects, magic or fire or what have you. And that is a specific type of graphical style. I title it personally realistic graphics. That's what I would call that. The closer to realism, you're trying to get something that is, doesn't look that far off the mark from what we see in the real world, right? The term high fidelity, however, implies a lot more than that. I would say high fidelity is more akin to just something that looks good. It has a good amount of polygons, whatever it's trying to represent, a realistic or perhaps cartoony or specific art style kind of style. Fortnite, I would argue, is a high fidelity looking game. There's a lot of artistic style to that, but the models are often representative of what they're trying to show. It's like your John Wick model or your Neo or whatever human actual character representing a real person or actor. Oftentimes it looks a lot like that person, albeit in kind of an cartoony style. So there's my big issue with that. I think it's a little misleading. I don't think it's a proper term. Then I have the secondary issue. That is to say, with the entire argument or with the statement brought by quoted actually from a ex Square Enix employee, Jacob Navik, um, that that is only valued, those realistic graphics, by older individuals, 40s and 50s, and that they're a vocal class, meaning that they're not really representative of, or is implied that they're not really even a large majority of that demographic. Here's the thing: I don't agree with that at all for the following reasons. I think, and I'm currently 34, so I grew up in, first console was a Nintendo, though it came out before I was born. Played into the Sega Genesis, PlayStation. That's sort of the graphical evolution you can imagine for me. Um, I would argue that any party who is engaging in these games, uh, some part of them does value good-looking graphics. Now, the use of the high fidelity, let's just use the way I would phrase it. Every party, I think, wants a good looking image in front of them to represent whatever game they're playing. It doesn't have to look like real life. It could look like Mario. And Mario on the Switch looks great. Mario Odyssey is a fantastic looking game. That was what I consider high fidelity graphics. Realistic graphics, I'd argue even kids enjoy that. Not just and I really don't get this 40s and 50s specifically kind of demographic that this guy quotes. I don't know if he had some extra resource that I'll never have, so I can't really say. But it doesn't sound, number one, people in their 40s and 50s, in my experience, generally don't play games as much. Let me say this. If I was to say of the human population, which age group plays games more, I would say more likely it's somewhere between uh, you know, 15 and maybe early 40s. 50s and higher, of course, they were there when games first started coming out, Space Invaders, uh, you know, etc. But I just don't see people touting for, I need my super realistic graphics, my Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, being a 50-year-old cat. I don't know. It's just, it seems like that's kind of off kilter to me. That doesn't seem, it just doesn't seem, in my experience. I've actually never really even met people like that. And the people who are older and play games are usually people who like older titles, like older video games, arcade games, uh, quote unquote retro games. So that part just seems weird and untrue to me. I'd like to see what supports that thesis, the hypothesis. But even young kids, I would argue, would love to see a good-looking video game, a realistic-looking game. The games that, like Spider-Man 2 on PS5, I think that's very broad appealing. Kids love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. It was my first favorite superhero as a kid. And I played Spider-Man video games as a kid, and they were graphically high fidelity for the time. Spider-Man on PlayStation 1, Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 1. Blocky looking by today's standards, but gorgeous at the time. And representative of what Spider-Man looked like. Spider-Man 2 and GameCube. That was going for a realistic style. Completely changed how movie video games are considered. Completely changed how Spider-Man games are made by the way whip swinging is made. And so, that game came out when I was 11, 10 or 11, maybe 12. So, I considered the realism of the good look of the game very important. Or at least the matter, it was really good to see it. I guess what really is important, and I'll get to that in a second, is the good gameplay. But here's another point. Playing is an excuse for hanging out with other people. That's what the kids value. They're not valuing the younger generation's value in their video games. Playing is an excuse for hanging out with other people. That's the quote by Joos van Drunen, market analyst and professor at New York University. And Professor van Drunen, if I'm sorry for using my bad German accent, but I had to do it. I don't agree with that on the following basis. Limiting it to younger generations. Everybody who plays a game, video game or not, traditionally is doing it as a group activity. Most games, let me be clear, there are a ton of games that are you can play just by yourself, card games or whatever, certain board games. But traditionally, I think in the history of games, humanity and games, it's a group activity. So to say playing is an excuse for hanging out with other people is, well, duh, yes, of course. But that's not just limited to young kids playing video games. It's any person playing any game. You play games with people. You play. My family loves to play. Good grief! What's the game called? My gosh, it starts the NES. Doesn't matter. Family likes to play board game, and it's a group activity. I love to play games, not just by myself, being a 34-year-old, but with other people. If I can play online with other people, that's fun. If I can play with my friends, even better. Playing Helldivers 2 with my buddies is that's the reason why I like the game Helldivers 2, despite its inherent flaw of being a online live service game, is that it's a fun game I can play with friends. That it makes the game so much better than by itself, which is a fantastic game. So that this article is trying to make some distinction between young and youth gamers and what the executives are trying to produce in AAA games. I don't think that's the right argument to go to the end point, which is to say that this is not a sustainable act. I think that is irrelevant to that, and also just blanketly incorrect in just limiting it to children. Humanity is a social creature. Humans are social creatures, that is. So, of course, the act of playing games you'd want to do socially. Another point. Developers have long taught players to equate realism with excellence. This is arguing against that there's some sort of paradigm shift between the past. Excellence is beautiful graphics. Now it's not the case. I don't agree with that historical view or whatever that is. Number one, that games have gotten to look better and looked super good is the natural evolution of graphical development. It's not we started at the best and now you only get super high graphics and that means that they're great. It is we started to make things as good as possible. Everything was a step of excellence graphically, and you happen to be getting great games while that happened. And the good games that were graphically beautiful are the ones that we remember. The bad games that were graphically beautiful are the ones maybe we don't remember or we remember with a bit of laughter. But of course, at this point in history, we've reached the point where there is no large step between the next graphical stage, at least that is easily sustainable or attainable and able to be produced and put on a console and put in the market, which is fine because there are graphical increases, sure, but it doesn't need to get much better looking in realism necessarily. What's important is the creation of good, fun playing games that have a fun gameplay. So, Last of Us, beautiful looking game, came out in the PS3 era. So excellent. The art style, the realism, it happened to be realistic looking, and just as important as those two aspects, the gameplay, which supported the narrative. That equated excellence. You have all of those combinations, not just realism. And I don't think anybody just truly believe that if it looks realistic, it's going to be a good game. I think people thought if it's realistic, oh, I have a high expectation. Now, does it play good? There's always the second half. There's the two parts of of the story of a game. Example of a game I don't think is fun or good, but looked probably great at the time. Maybe not super excellent compared to other things, but it has a realistic style. Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain, I wanted to play for a long time. I've heard good things about it, and I'm sure some people will disagree with me vehemently because they were able to make it work. But I bought it on the PlayStation 3. I tried it with my PS3. It wouldn't work. It's relying on motion controls, and whatever reason, my controllers, three of them, could not get the toothbrush action to work on the first 5 minutes of the game. I can't play the game, and therefore it's worthless. The game sucks. It sucks to me. So that makes a bad game. It looks really cool. I even thought these realistic characters. They're gonna go into it's a story. I'm interested in the concept of the intrigue, a mystery. I can't play it. Okay, it's not fun then. It's not a good game. Not a good game for me. For whatever reason, I can't make it work. So I don't think that. First off, developers don't teach us anything. They haven't taught us anything, or maybe they have, but it's not like a teacher. Oh, sensei, developer, teach me the ways. It's more like, oh, look, there's some games. This is cool. Is it fun? Oh, this maybe they taught me. Hey, this playing like this can be fun, or playing this kind of story can be fun. But I don't ever think they taught us that. It's realistic. Therefore, it's automatically great. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I thought about it a little harder than most. But I doubt that. But that's not something that ever was a connection for me personally. I always love it when there's a realistic game that's fun. It looks amazing. That's why I bought Final Fantasy VII. I bought Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because I was into Final Fantasy VII. It just happened to be damn, and the first remake, was really good. And I played 7, not at the time when it came out, but I still think 7 looks damn good. And that's all supported by the fact that it's a fun game too. These are fun games. Toaster generation, game expense versus outcome. So they're saying that, and this I do agree with, that it's not being very economical to make these games. They cost millions of dollars. Super realistic graphics. When people just value toaster generation, the toaster generation kids, they can play a game that can play on a toaster. Somewhat agree. It doesn't really matter what it can play on. That's not the point. I think it's being missed. The point is that you have to make a game that's fun. If a game is fun and has simplistic graphics, for instance, my sister likes this game called Crawl. I don't think it's fun at all, but she loves it, and it's all faux sprites. It's all kind of in a 16-bit kind of style-ish. Hundreds of hours playing that game. It's not graphically intense. It's not breaking the console, the Switch. But it's appealing visual. I will say that. It's got an appealing visual art style. Not really, not for me, but I can see how people would like it. And the gameplay, for some, is fun. And so that's all that's important. So if you're going to spend a lot of money on these games with motion capture and millions of dollars and cinematics and all this marketing you put into the game, you better be able to make it a fun game. That's really the most important. That's just as important a part to the graphics. Ultimately, I think this article misses the mark because it doesn't focus on. It focuses on generational things between kids, adults, and older adults. That is, I feel completely irrelevant and missing the point of What's the issue? The issue is that game developers and their executives are not treating their product with as much care as they should. Therefore, they are grinding their employees and not treating their employees as well as they should. And when something doesn't work out, they get rid of them. And when it does work out, even when games do work out, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they're still saying it's not making enough money. So they turn to this new issue, which is live service games, which is the gold mine that these companies want. Which is basically the perfect situation for them is to charge us for a game, oftentimes like Helldivers or Avengers, and then make you continuously pay afterwards. And when it becomes not economic for them to anymore, when people are kind of done paying, they kill it. They don't got to support it anymore. It's dead because it's all server based. You don't own it. It's done, and you, the consumer, are basically screwed. That kind of abuse to the consumer is something that should be highly discouraged, and should be included in this article because it really is kind of important to the point about how they're trying to make up losses with these big AAA games. Like Sony, they lost big on Concord, they made big on Helldivers, and they're going to squeeze as much money out of Helldivers as possible. Helldivers is a good game. Helldivers 2 is a fantastic game, great developers, but in the end, it's going to die. It's all server based. There's nothing on my computer that has the core game files for me to just go to any planet and play the game. It's all based on a server. And they charge microtransactions, and they've been doing that now for a while, but it's even worse now because I can still play all those Call of Duties, even though I don't like Call of Duty at all. I occasionally will own a copy when I buy games. I can put any of those 360 copies in there and play the game. Just because the online servers don't work anymore and they can't charge me for new cosmetics or new maps, the game still works. That doesn't make them any money. And so they're trying to recoup their losses on these gigantic games that cost millions of dollars, Hollywood bucks, by ever charging us for crap that we don't own. So I think the article should have focused less on youth distinctions and what's important for some gamers. I think it should have been made mention that people don't always value realistic graphics, that some games with more cartoony graphics, though still beautiful looking, high fidelity, they are very successful without having the need to break the bank as much as some of these Hollywood level AAA games. I still don't think Fortnite's a great example because it is the definition of microtransaction and game and consumer abuse, and the only way to really improve your character is through your pockets, the money in your pocket. Personally, that's why I don't like games like that. There's occasional games that are fun just to hop in, just play a little bit. I get that. That's cool, and that's why Fortnite has value. And you could theoretically just never pay anything in that game and just enjoy it free, that's a good thing. It's a nice thing. But eventually it will die too. Fortnite will die because it is server-based. You don't own the game, and there's no part of the client or the game files that are on your own local storage. And one day maybe not anytime soon, but one day it will die. And if you're the kind of person who likes to throw a bunch of money at cosmetics and stuff like that, then all that money is gone. So that's a big issue. I think that's as big an issue as people. I mean, not as big as issue, but it's kind of in conjunction with this issue of what game companies are trying to do to recoup losses or make money in the market. I had another point in one of the versions of this video I made. Luigi's Mansion 3 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth being compared to as high fidelity graphics. Luigi's Mansion 3 is beautiful, and the video or a little clip they show in the article shows how beautiful it looks. It just is another kind of reinforces what I believe that a high fidelity, what that term actually means. Realistic versus high fidelity. Two different things, and I feel like they should have used that here. Overall, though, yes, I do think it was awesome that they brought this up. That they brought up that making games like this, I don't think it's a sustainable act. If we want to get great games that look good, I think that there should be a switch to making games that are good, not necessarily super cutting edge graphics, but add some games to your catalog that are good, fun games. Let's take for instance Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog is trying to always make every single realistic game. Re-releasing Last of Us 2 5 seconds after it came out, bullshit. Remastered, bullshit. Last of Us 1 remastered, yeah, I definitely see the difference, but bullshit. Stop trying to rip out our damn pockets for crap we already have. If you want to support those super cool new Naughty Dog friggin' games, grow your team a little bit more. Maybe if you don't have team members, and throw out a Jak and Daxter. I'm pretty sure you're not going to break the graphical budget making Jak and Daxter, and make it fun. It's one of the games people love. That's the money you make from that supports your endeavors in those super realistic narrative kind of changing the world kind of games like Last of Us and Uncharted. Don't get me wrong, I freaking love the Last of Us series. I just feel like it's being embellished a little too much. It's between that and Jak and Daxter, I love them two different reasons, but they have a good catalog of games. They're not capitalizing it. Maybe they should be busting out some, like Insomniac. They did that. I'm pretty sure Insomniac, it makes Ratchet and Clank, right? And they gave us a new Ratchet. Let me look that up real quick. Looking it up. Yeah, exactly. Thought I was going crazy. Yeah, they made a new Ratchet and Clank. And guess what? They made Spider-Man 2. And those are both really great games. Recent games. Maybe one supported the other because one did so well. Maybe their team's a little bigger. I think it's a better strategy. It's less gutting the gamers let me say this: the consumer out of stuff, either trying to reap them out of their money on continuous microtransactions or making them repay for the same damn thing that you already released a while ago. Giving us something new, something not necessarily graphically, destructive, graphics card breaking. Fun game, memorable game, makes you look good, good for investors, economics to support AAA titles. That's my opinion. Maybe that's nuts. Maybe that doesn't work in real life, but that's an idea I have for that. But that's it. That's all I got to say on this. Hopefully this one actually did record properly, and I will post it. And thanks for tuning in to the Game Dungeon. I'm outie.